college planning and content creation. Jonathan has been doing this for how many years?
Well, my son is 10, and I think I was here before he was here. So, yeah, so I think it's 10 or 11 years.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
And so many of the high schoolers and parents benefited from these presentations. College admission can be tricky, especially if your parents get into, go to school here. So, understanding the system. It's still complicated for me, even though I heard the talk a few times. And I'm hoping that you can take notes or on your phone write questions and keep it to the end. And Jonathan probably at the end. Or you want him as we go to...
We can do both, yeah. I can take questions as we go, and I will be here after as well.
Okay, and so he will talk one-on-one with anyone who needs any help. And we're very grateful and blessed to have him come. He's very familiar with the Coptic Orthodox Church. He attended many services in the main church. So he's a good friend of St. Mark and St. Mark congregation. So you want to welcome him and thank him for coming and joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I want to make sure you can hear me because I do remember that. Turn it up? Yeah.
Yes, you just did.
Did I?
Yes.
Okay. Turn it up.
Good?
Okay.
Perfect.
Where am I going?
This is also on, if you don't mind, it's on the broadcast, so in case anybody is not
sure, absolutely.
be able to-
Yes,
okay?
yes, that's fine.
So you have this
Okay.
under control.
Thank you. I didn't used to need these. This is how long I've been here. But I do want to mention, too, before I get started, that typically when I've done this is my college admissions presentation that I do every year. And maybe one or two that I do every year. Typically, I do financial aid. But Father Samuel has been here typically, and he usually pipes in when he knows that whatever I've said needs to be repeated or something needs to be added to it. So I want to ask Father Mark if he also hears me say something that he thinks that they could benefit. You guys can benefit from some more explanation. To please feel free to do that. And so we can take questions as I go. I want to thank you for being here. I do love coming to St. Mark's. I do love this every year coming here and doing this. If you haven't seen us yet, I do want to mention we do two presentations here. This one is college admissions. In 2 weeks, I think, we'll be doing financial aid. And so this is important to know, and I was asked to state this up front. Financial aid is going to be much, much different this year. There's a big change that happens with financial aid policy. Typically, you'd be able to go and file your financial aid paperwork right now, particularly a form called the FAFSA, which is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's the form you need to file to be eligible for federal student aid from the state of Massachusetts as well. And many colleges base their financial aid on that form. That's delayed this year. It's going to be radically changed. Simplified is the idea, so hopefully it will actually be simple when they bring it out. But it is going to come out sometime in December. We don't know when yet. So stay tuned, and we will let everybody know when that is. If you have questions about financial aid, we know roughly what's going to change. But there are some details that still haven't been ironed out yet. So if you want to learn about all that, make sure to attend Stephanie's talk in a couple of weeks, in 2 weeks. I think it's the 16th. Mary can tell. October 16th. Yep, at 7. But we're here tonight to talk about admissions, which we'll kind of touch on that. Before I get into it, I want to talk about MEFA, who is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. That's us. We are a state authority. We were created back in 1982 by the Massachusetts State Legislature, and we have a public service mission to help families to, we say, plan, save, and pay for college. So we have all sorts of resources. We're going to go over a lot of information tonight. It'll be about an hour on college admissions. I don't expect you to get all of it, to absorb every piece of information. There are things about college admissions that I still don't know. It's always, you're always kind of learning because things change. But we are here, MEFA, as a resource for you. So if you have any questions, please do not feel shy to call us. I have my card that I can give you, my direct line, my direct number. I do not mind at all taking questions from anybody, least of all anybody here. So if you have questions, we are a free resource for you to use as a company and me specifically. So can I see a show of hands? How many are parents of high school juniors? Sophomores? Seniors? Okay. All right, so we got a mix. Okay, that's good. So tonight what we're going to talk about are some current trends in college admissions. And so we break this down into two categories because it is kind of a two-track process. You get getting into college and paying for college. So admissions and financial aid. So we're going to talk about admissions tonight. So what are we seeing in terms of trends, people applying to colleges, what are colleges looking for, what are some of the changes that have occurred over the past few years, and how people actually apply to college and get admitted. We'll talk about how you can compile your college list, which is going to be really your first big task as a student. And that should happen junior or senior year of high school. You should be compiling your college list. Junior year is the beginning of the search, and then the fall of senior year, you should have your college list. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about campus visits and how you can make those and what they can tell you. The actual application process itself, so how do you apply and what are colleges looking for when you do apply, when they're going over your applications. We will discuss financial aid because that does have some bearing on where you're going to apply because you want to make sure that you have colleges that you can afford. And then we'll talk about some free resources. So, depending on where you are in the process, actually it doesn't really depend whether or not you have a senior, whether or not you have a junior, a sophomore, or a freshman. It's going to be a long road to getting them to college, but it's natural to feel overwhelmed at times. But there are free resources available for you to use. So we're one, the high school counselors are some, college admissions officers and financial aid officers, and we'll go through that. But there are free resources for you to use. As far as questions are concerned, if you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll answer them as we go, unless I know we're getting to it. And I will be here afterwards as well. So if you have any questions that you don't want to ask in front of everybody, you can come up and talk to me privately later on. Okay, so what are we seeing in terms of college admission trends? Students are applying to a greater number of schools. And part of the reason for that is it's much easier to do that than it used to be. I remember when I applied to colleges, I applied to 4 colleges because I had to go and actually fill out by hand the college application form and mail it in and send in a check because you do have to pay to apply for colleges. Now there's something that we will talk about called the Common Application where you can submit your college application to many colleges at once. So colleges are getting a lot more applications from students. And what that means, it's going to lead us into our second point here. It says demonstrated interest is a factor. And what that means is when they're making their decisions as to who they're going to admit, they want to admit somebody that is likely to come to their school, right? Because what they want to see is they get all these applications, they admitted a certain percentage of them, and a high percentage of those kids that they admitted decided to come to that college because it looks good for them, for the college. So when they're looking over the applications, they're looking to see if they can tell how much your student is interested in that particular college. So it's important sometimes if you do have a college that you're interested in as a student to reach out to the college. So contact the admissions office. Go on a tour of the college. Do whatever you can to demonstrate that you are interested in going to that college because you may have a higher likelihood of being approved to that college if they can tell. One of the ways that you can do that is being in touch through social media. So colleges, a lot of college admissions offices have really robust communication and engagement with the students and their applicants. So that's a really good thing. The other side to that is that we will continue to say what we've said for a while as far as social media is concerned. If you're a student applying to colleges, make sure that your social media profiles are going to reflect well on you, right? So don't have anything on there that is going to sort of make it more difficult to approve you or to admit you into that college, that will embarrass the college by doing so. So you just want to make sure that you're on top of that. Cost being a bigger factor, it's no secret that college is expensive or can be expensive. There's lots of different types of colleges, and they all have different costs. And this is something that Stephanie is going to go over. But I think the best thing that you can do for yourself this early on in the process, when you're looking at colleges that you want to apply to, make sure that there's a range of prices there. So you have colleges, that may have high sticker prices and low sticker prices, some that you know that you can afford. Now, the fact is, I would never take a school off of your list because of a high tuition figure, because there is financial aid, right? And so very few families are going to have to pay the full cost of college. So definitely don't remove any just because you see a high tuition sticker price. But you just want to make sure that you do have some options if you don't get the financial aid offer that you were hoping to get. So you want to see some variation there. We kind of already went over the ways to interact with colleges virtually, but since the pandemic, you can, and we'll go over this when we talk about campus tours, but there are virtual ways that you can get in touch with colleges and take tours and learn about colleges from students or from alumni. There are more test optional schools. So what that means with the tests I'm referring to are the SATs or the ACTs. So when you're sending your application to colleges, they're going to be looking at things like your GPA score. They're going to be looking at your standardized test scores. Only some of them won't. Some of them won't require those tests. There's more colleges now that do not require than ever before. So we'll talk more about that. And unfortunately, with more applicants coming into colleges, there are longer wait lists. So, you could be, if you apply to a college, you could be admitted, you could be rejected, or you could be put on a wait list. And unfortunately, that's that's a tough position to be in on a wait list. So we're seeing schools waitlisting a lot of students rather than rejecting students or dismissing students. So we're seeing longer wait lists and more students on wait lists. Any questions so far? Yes?
So I heard something about test optional schools. I'm not sure if it's true or not.
Yep.
I heard a lot of schools, they mark themselves as test optional.
Oh.
Test scores actually matter. I'm not sure.
I have not heard about that. I will say something that I was listening to a webinar about this, and one of my colleagues said, test optional schools are really test optional. So that I can tell you. It's whether or not you should admit your test scores is the question, because you still can. So once they move the focus off of tests, if they're not requiring tests, the weight in that application is going to have to go somewhere else. So if your GPA is good, great, but your test scores aren't great, then that's going to be good for you. If your test scores reflect well, if you test highly on SATs and it's going to make you a more attractive student, then put them in. Did you have a question? Yeah.
Does yours, if you take the test, does it automatically go to college?
No, you have to. That's a good question. Yeah, if you take those tests, do they automatically see those results? They don't. You need to submit them. Yeah. Good question. Okay. So the first sort of principle that I will give you is that it's good to stay organized. And I say this as a very disorganized person. I would not be the person doing this. This would be my wife in my house. But this whole process, you really need to stay on top of, because different colleges are going to have different practices. They're going to have different deadlines. They're going to want different applications. So make sure as you're going through your colleges and doing sort of research and putting colleges on your list, that you know, first of all, what forms you need to file for admission. So colleges may accept an application that I've already mentioned called the Common Application, which goes to a bunch of colleges. Some colleges may have their own institutional application that you need to file. It depends on the college. Some colleges want a specific financial aid form by a certain date. Some want it on a different date. Some don't want that form at all, but they want a different form. So this is one of the few times, I think, in life that a date is a really important, a deadline is a hard deadline, and you don't want to miss a hard deadline in this process. So we have this application manager on our website. You can download and print it off. I unfortunately don't have copies to give you, but we decided just the other day that would be a good thing to have those, so we could give those out. So if you come next year, I'll have those for you. But you can go online and download this, or somebody can just start a spreadsheet. There's always somebody in the family who likes spreadsheets. As I said, it's my wife and my family. But it's a really important thing to stay organized and just make sure your ducks are in a row and know who needs what when. I was on the phone talking with a parent the other day, and her student, she was looking for colleges that offer extra supports for her student. And she's like, there's just so much information. And that's true, there's so much information. So the first thing in this process that students are going to start is researching colleges. And there's hundreds of colleges throughout the United States, if not more. And there's all sorts of metrics and ways that you can look at different colleges and see if they're a fit for you. But you just kind of have to go through and search. So these resources here are some sites that you can use to search colleges. When I was in high school, they used to have big books full of college, statistics, and you just go and sort of leaf through the ones. So it's much better now. There's a lot more information available. It's a lot easier to search, but there's a lot of it, so it can get overwhelming. This image that you see here is from a federal website called College Scorecard. And I don't know if you can see it, but it says it's giving the information for UMass Boston. So you can kind of create a profile and go in and search. You can search by major. You can search by size of college. You can search by type of college, whether public college, private college, religious college, rural college, things like that. You can search in a geographical area, search the class size, all these sorts of metrics that you can use to see if this is a college you might want to attend. Also here, which is a really good thing, they give you the graduation rate. So if you go to this college, if you enroll in this college, how likely are you to actually graduate? You see UMass Boston graduates 57% of their students. It'll also give you the average annual cost, and then also the average earnings 10 years after enrolling. So there's all that particular site, as I said, is called College Scorecard. And with the focus on the earnings like that, what it's supposed to do is give you an idea if this college is a good investment for you. The first one, College Navigator, just has so much information. It'll give you male to female ratio, class size, all the majors offered, everything. It's a lot of information, but it can be really useful. And also Big Future is the College Board search site. So College Board is the organization that does the SATs and the AP programs and the other financial aid form other than the FAFSA called the CSS Profile. And then our site, which actually I think you should have gotten a flyer for, which is MIFA Pathway, has resources for all of this and a lot more as well. So those are just some ways you can begin to research colleges. And when you are researching, these are the things that you want to be thinking about as a student. So probably the first thing that students mention is size. Is it a big college? Is it a small college, a medium-sized college? And I think this is directly related to a lot of students' high school experiences. They know if they want to go to a big college or a small college. And location is another big one. So my brother went to Syracuse University in New York. He's a year older than me. So I went up to visit him up at Syracuse, and I knew this is not for me. Like, it's not, it's an all due respect to Syracuse, New York, but everything in Syracuse is Syracuse University for me. It's like there's nothing else around. And I didn't want that. And I didn't want a college that was so big that I could never know my way around, or I could never know most of the people in my class. And I wanted to be in a city. So I knew that wasn't right for me. So I focused on New York City, Boston. I went to a school in Boston. But that was the first thing I knew. And it also goes to something that we're going to talk about later on, which is college visits. The biggest thing that you really should consider and that colleges are going to consider is academic fit. So, can you succeed academically at this college? Is it within your wheelhouse? And there's a couple of ways that you can actually determine that. If you go to college websites, they will have information on their incoming class that they just admitted. So they'll say 15% of our students are from New England, or 25% are from out of the country, or they'll be 55% female, 45% male, which is the figure that came up over and over again when I looked at colleges today. It's 55, 45. And, things like GPA. So this is our student body GPA spread, anywhere from 3.2 to 3.8. This is what you're looking at. So if you've got your GPA somewhere in there, this might be a good fit for you. So academic fit is really important. Intended major, of course, is important. So if you're going to, if you're lucky enough to know what you want to study and know what you want to do, might be particular colleges that are well known for that. So I went to Emerson College in Boston when I was a student because I liked communications and I went to study communications. So that was really famous for communications. So let's apply there. Learning style, and this is kind of like class size. Do you like being in lecture halls with 150 students, or do you like being in a small class environment? Do you like doing projects? There are some colleges that don't even grade you. They'll just have you work on a project, and that will be, and you'll sort of write a review on that project, and that will be your grade. So that's something that you can think about. And then campus culture and activities, these all sort of blend in together. So, you have colleges in which football is a really big deal, or colleges that are art colleges, or colleges that are very politically attuned one way or the other. Campus culture is a big deal, and this is another reason why campus visits are such a big deal, because you'll be able to tell the culture pretty quickly once you go on one of those visits. Are there programs that you want to study, like study abroad programs? There was a really good one at my college where you went and lived in Europe for a year or a semester and got to travel all around. I didn't do that, and I don't know why. I've been kicking myself ever since. But it's like a well-known program that you go to the Netherlands and live in a castle, basically, for a semester. So things like that can be really attractive to students. Career and internship services, and lastly, affordability. So those are things that you want to look at when you're looking at colleges. And we've mentioned visits already many times. There are two types of visits. There are formal visits and informal visits. College campuses are public spaces. So you can all go and just walk on a college campus now. It's fine. I grew up around the block from a college in Quincy, Massachusetts, and we used to ride our bikes through the campus as kids all the time, go and play video games in the arcade and stuff like that. It's a public place. Now, you can't just go and sit in a class, but you can go on the campus and take a walk and look around. So that's something that you can do to just sort of get a feel for a place. You can eat in the dining hall. You can go sort of check out the student union and see what flyers are on the board and see how people seem to be. You'd be surprised how vivid an idea that can give you of a place, and I know that from personal experience. So those are informal visits. Formal visits are visits that have been set up ahead of time. So, you might be talking to the admissions office and they set you up with a student or a faculty member to go and give you the tour of the facilities and to show you the dorm rooms and to show you, remember, again, to use my example, they showed us the film editing suites and the video editing suites and stuff like that. Everything that they can offer you as amenities as a student. So that's a great way to learn about the colleges, and it's also a great way to demonstrate interest, right? So because they have you, they know you're there, and you're interested in going. Sometimes there are programs where you can go as a high school junior or senior and actually stay a weekend in a dorm with a student and go to classes with them and eat in the dining hall and all that stuff. And that's also a really valuable experience. And don't be afraid to ask questions too during that period. But we know visits, like I cannot tell you how many times I've heard from families who are looking at finance in college and they're trying to make a decision as to where their student wants to go. The student starts off with one school in laser focus. They know they want to go to Holy Cross, or they know they want to go to Amherst College, or they know they want to go whatever. And they get there and they know right away it's not what they thought it was going to be. It's not for them. And so they change their mind. And so it's really surprising how common that is and how quick. I remember talking with a student, an art student, who went to an art school and was like, I didn't like the walls. She said that it looked like a gym in there. It didn't look nice. I couldn't see anything. I didn't like the art that was there. It wasn't for me. So yeah, that can be a really potent look. I'm going to stop here because I'm talking a lot and see if you have any questions on anything that I've said already or something that I haven't said. Yes?
Two questions. Are you going to share the slides afterwards?
I do have the slides. I think I emailed them to Mary and this PDF slides.
Oh, yes, I have them.
Yes. So I don't have them in paper form, but yeah.
Give them over to Mark, who will share them with all of you.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Another question. Is there usually one way to set up performance visits to campuses, or is it different from one college to another?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, typically it's done through the admissions office. Yeah. So you want to be in contact with the admissions office and set something up. Yeah. Thank you. Good question. Yes?
One more question.
Yeah.
The number of visits, like if I do visit this college more than one time, does this have an effect on applying or accepting your application?
It could. I mean, every college is going to be different in the way because a lot of colleges use that demonstrated interest, but some don't. So it's going to be different from college to college. So it may be. Maybe is the question, yeah. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the questions. Oh, one tip if you can't get to college campuses, there are college fairs. And so these are typically done, I remember being in high school or actually working for MIFA and going to high school college fairs where a lot of regional colleges or some national colleges will come and set up shop in the auditorium or in the gym, and they'll have admissions representatives there. They'll have their brochures. They'll have all their information, and you'll get some time during your day to go and walk around to different colleges and ask them questions. There's also a huge one in Boston. It's a national fair, and they have different sites throughout the country. The one in Boston is typically done in May. It's called the NACAC College Fair, and there's about 300 colleges that display there, and about 10,000 students usually go through. So that's a really big one. There are a lot of smaller ones, again, usually in the high school. If you are going to a college fair that's a bigger one, like the one I mentioned, it's good to have a plan because it can be really overwhelming to go into, for example, the South Bay Convention Center or whatever it is, and walk into a room with thousands of people and just kind of go. So typically these places will put out information beforehand where they have maps. So where the colleges are going to be. So if you know you're looking for a particular college, you can say, okay, I'll go here first, here first, here first. They also have breakout sort of sessions on things like financial aid and admissions. One tip, if you do go to a college table that is a college that you're interested in, make sure they have your contact because that demonstrates interest, right? So they're going to take that information back. Get that person's email address, email them afterwards with any questions, or send them a thank you note. Because they could be looking at your admissions application months later or a year later when you're applying, and they may remember you. So that may go a long way to do that. Okay. So now we're talking about assembling the college list. Your list should kind of be broken down into 3 categories for admissions. And they would be likely to be admitted, possible to be admitted, and reach schools. So the way you can determine this, your GPA and your academic performance is the most important part of your application. So they do want to know about all the other stuff. They do want to know about your extracurriculars. They want to read your essay. They want to see your test scores. But your academic performance is the most important part. So you can look up, there are sites, and there should be on the admission sites of colleges, like I said, of the student body and what their admitted class is and what their GPA spread is and what their test scores are, et cetera. So you should be able to know where you kind of fall in that category. So if the student body is between a 3.2 and a 3.5 GPA and you've got a 3.5 GPA, that's a pretty good likelihood that you're going to be admitted to that college. It's not just about GPA. It's about GPA and other things as well, but that bodes well for you. If you're on the cusp, if you're at 3.1, but you have other impressive things, and that's a possible. And then a reach school is maybe I'll get in. Maybe they're looking for you. You never really know why college is going to make the decisions that they make. There are all sorts of factors that we just don't know about. But it's a reach, right? And so you should have some likely, possible, and reach schools. And I'll say this because I heard it once and I thought it was really good advice, that you should put the most amount of effort into your likely schools. Because if you don't get into your reach schools, you're left with your likely schools or your possible schools. You might be left with your likely schools only. So you want to make sure that that is a place that you would be happy attending. And there are always transfers. You can always transfer. You can always do well in your likely school. And if your heart is set on a different school, see if you can transfer over later. That's fine. It's where you finish. It's not where you start, right? But that should be the most work should be done in your likely schools. And also, I just want to say, the Ivy League schools, Harvard, MIT, Tufts, Brown, UPenn, Columbia, colleges like that, Yale, Princeton, those are reach schools for everyone. So, for students who have the highest possible GPA, it's a reach to get into those schools. They admit such a small portion of applicants, and just about everybody who applies to those colleges are outstanding students. So that's a reach for everybody. So just to know that ahead of time. Anything on that? Okay. Well, Mark, I don't know if you heard, but I mentioned earlier, if you have anything that you need to add to something that I've said, please don't feel shy to do so. Yeah, because I've always appreciated it when that's done in the past because I've forgotten something. Now, when it comes to actually applying for colleges, I've mentioned a few different ways. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is different. I thought these are college application forms. So these are college application types. These are ways that you can apply for college as far as timeline is concerned. So there is the most popular way to apply for college is regular decision. And what that means is you're going to send your application in the fall of your senior year, and the deadline may be, February 1st. Right? So that's a regular decision timeline. And most students, this is how they apply. But then there are other ways to apply. So early action and early decision have earlier deadlines. And so they're different. Early action just means you're applying early. You want to know early if you've been admitted or not. That's it. And so it's not unusual to have colleges say early action 1 deadline is October 15th. Early action 2 deadline is November 1st. So they may have 1 or 2 sort of tiers there. Early decision is different. So don't apply early decision by accident. Because what early decision is you're applying early. You want to know whether or not you've been admitted early. But you're also saying that if you admit me, I'm committing to attending the college. So it's what we call a binding agreement with the college. So you shouldn't be applying early decision to more than 1 college, if at all. Many people don't apply early decision anyway. Most people don't. But if you are, you shouldn't be doing it to more than one college. And you shouldn't be doing it unless you're pretty sure that you can afford to pay for that college student. This gets tricky this year because typically, as we said, the FAFSA and stuff was available by October 1st. It's not. So if you want to apply early decision to a college and you can't file a FAFSA, what are you going to do, right? Because usually you file it, you have some idea what you're going to get. Because they often want those financial aid applications early as well with the admissions applications. Yeah. What's that? Say that again? No, it's not that. It's just that it becomes, this year in particular, you have to reach out to the school and see what they want to do about that, about early decision and with the FAFSA not being available. Because some colleges, there's another form called the CSS profile, which colleges require to get their own financial aid. So you have to file a FAFSA and send that everywhere. But some colleges also want this other form called the profile. And that is out. So if you're applying early, if you want to apply early decision to a college that has the profile, they'll probably just tell you just file your profile. It's fine, which would be fine. Some colleges might say, well, we have another form to give you that you can fill out to give you some idea of what it's going to be. But this is a conversation you want to have with the colleges. I don't think, in fact, I know, colleges are not going to expect you to apply early decision and have this binding agreement without having some idea of what it's going to cost you. So they will have some workaround for that. But what that is just going to differ from college to college. Yeah. Yeah?
What are the pros and cons of early action?
Yeah, that's a good question. So early action, it's funny, you know, I often wonder that myself. From the student standpoint, it's you just get to know early, which is good. From the college standpoint, you know, not really sure. I mean, applying early action does demonstrate interest, so that you're more likely to attend than a regular decision. But it doesn't necessarily, and like I said, every school is different, and I should underline that with all of this. Every school has their own admissions policies. So if you have a question about whether or not applying early action will give you a better chance of being admitted, you should ask that college. Because at some colleges it may, due to that demonstrated interest factor. At some colleges it may not. Early decision does kind of give you a better chance of being admitted because you're already committing to attending. So they know that you know, if they admit you, you're coming. And they'll be able to get their class set earlier and have those seats filled. So that does sort of give you a little bit of an advantage in the admissions process, applying early decision, which is why some people do it. Otherwise, I would never do it, but yeah. That's a really good question. And then there are other types of admissions, so rolling admissions, which means there's no start and end date. You know, colleges might be accepting admissions applications from July through April. You know, and it just depends. They'll decide on them as they get them. And to that question, somebody actually asked me, he said, it's better to apply early if they're doing rolling admissions, right? Earlier is better. And the answer is yes. Earlier is typically better when you're applying rolling admissions because not only are they giving out their seats, but they're administering their aid as well. So they have a certain amount that they can give to students, and you just want to make sure that you're applying early so that you have that maximum aid eligibility. And then open admission is just if you want to come to the school, you can come to the school. And so that is a thing primarily with community colleges. You know, if you are graduated from high school or have I think I have a GED, there are some certain requirements there to be admitted, but you don't have to apply and be approved. You can just sign up for classes. There may be courses or courses of study programs within the community colleges that you're not guaranteed admission to, but you are guaranteed admission to those colleges that have open admission, as long as you meet those sort of state requirements that you've met in high school. There you go. Okay. Now we're going to talk about college application forms. The most common of these is fittingly called the Common App, and it is accepted by something like 400 or 300 colleges, 300 and some colleges nationwide. And it's basically, they have an online application that you complete, and they will give you certain things like essay prompts. So if you want to write your essay about this particular topic, you can think about that. And you can submit your GPA or what have you, and just submit your application through the Common App directly to the colleges. So a lot of colleges accept the Common App. These other applications, the Universal App, the Coalition App, are similar to the Common App. It's the same general idea, but they're just accepted by fewer colleges. The Common App is sort of the most popular one. And some colleges accept more than one. So some will accept the Common App or the Universal App or the Coalition App. It really doesn't have any bearing on whether or not you're admitted to that college or not. And some colleges will still have their own institutional application. I gotta think it's a really small amount of schools that have their own institutional applications. But again, just going back to that staying organized and making sure you know what each college wants. You just want to make sure that you know what each college wants. And then paper application. I don't know of any college that takes a paper application still. That's not to say I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all these colleges and what they want. It's still there, so I got to think that there's some colleges that want a paper application, but it's very, very rare, I'd have to think. But the most common way to apply, as I said, is the Common Application, and it's kind of why, a big part of the reason why students are applying to 10, 12, 20 colleges, in a year. Any questions on that? Because people want to know, like, what's a good number of colleges to apply to? I think a good, I've heard anywhere from 6 is good, 10, 8 is good. As long as you have a good variety of, as I said, target schools, likely schools, possible schools. So, yeah. And also bear in mind that college applications cost money for the most part, right? So you may have to apply pay $50 to send your application. You may have to send a few $100s for your application. So just bear that in mind as well. Now, what actually is part? Oh, yes.
So do other schools see the number of schools you apply to, or do they look totally on that shotgun approach?
That's a good question. For financial aid, I'd be able to tell you, but for admissions, I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I will find out for you and let you know. Because one of the things talking about early decision is people say, well, if I go early decision, or if I apply early decision, and then I can't go, I decide not to go to that college, what are they going to do? Right? Even though I've entered this binding agreement, what if I just don't go? What are they going to do? And what I've heard, and I'm not 100% sure, but one of the things I heard is they will make it known that you have broke a binding agreement, and so that may impact negatively your chances to get into your other colleges. I don't know again how that exactly works. So it's something I can find out for you and let you know. We'll meet afterwards. I'll give you my card and I'll let you know. But it's a good question. When it comes to actually the components of the college application, so what is part of the application? It's not just the form, although that's part of it. The application form is there, your high school transcripts, so your GPA, the courses you took, your standardized test scores if you're going to submit them to colleges. Letters of recommendation. So this is so funny to me because I can't think of any other circumstances in which you need letters of recommendation anymore, but you need them for college. It feels like such an old-fashioned thing. But colleges will be upfront about how many letters of recommendation that they need. So you should ask for those by the end of your junior year, if possible. That's a good time. Or if you've missed that, it's not too late. But junior year high school teachers are good people to get that from. Your activity list or your resume, so that's something that people want to see. Activity list kind of just means what you do after school, right? So this is where they want to know, they've got your grades, they've got your test scores, they've got your letters. Who are you outside of school? And this can be sports is the first thing that everybody thinks of course, which certainly is part of that, and clubs as well. So whether or not you're part of the French club or the Key Club or the yearbook committee or whatever, that goes on there. But also I'll say just anything that you do after school, whether or not that's a job, whether you're a volunteer at an organization, whether you help babysit your cousins, that should go on your activity list. That should go on what you do after school. Because they want to know who you are as a person. They don't want to see that you just go home from school and that's it. Right? They want to know what else you're interested in. And also, just to throw in what I've heard, being a part of a club or being in a volunteer group or whatever is great. They really like to see leadership positions. Not everybody can be a leader, I understand that, but that's what I've heard. And they want to know that you were part of it, but also what did you do, right? So be specific. And I think I remember this is where, I don't see Boone and Mark, but I remember this is where Boone and Sam would pipe in and say, you guys have all done this, and this. That should be on your activity list. So, if you are part of a group that is related to the church, you put that in, but you can also put in everything that you do as part of that group. So, we wanted to say that. Personal essay. This is the one that students have a lot of anxiety about their essays because they usually don't know what to write. They are not practiced in writing about themselves, which is understandable. But I think we have a slide on personal essays later. I can say more if we don't. And then the last three are sort of all taken together: interview, audition, and portfolio. Auditions and portfolios are if you're attending an art school or a performance arts school. You might be required to submit your portfolio or to audition. My sister went to New York University, a musical theater, and had to audition to get in. So she had her audition, and I went to Emerson. I had to submit my portfolio. So it depends on the college. And then the interview I want to take just a second to talk about. Colleges used to require you to come in and interview. So maybe one day letters of recommendation will go the way of the personal interview, but they haven't yet. But most colleges don't require that anymore. Some offer it, so you can do it if you want to. And there are two different types of interviews that are informational interviews, which are for you to talk to somebody at the college and find out what it's like at that college or answer your questions. And then another one is evaluative, so they're evaluating you as a potential student. If doing an interview is going to make you a more attractive candidate to be admitted, do it. If not, it's fine. Yeah. So that's what I'll say about that. I mentioned this a bit already, but academic readiness, academic rigor, your academic record is given the most weight in the application, right? So they're going to look at your GPA and check out your GPA, but they also want to see that you're testing yourself. So, all A's is really great, obviously, but if you have all A's and you never took any honors courses or you never took any AP courses, or that is going to make them question why. So, and it's been said to me, this is difficult to talk about because every student has to kind of weigh this on their own. That a B+ in an AP course or an honors course might be more impressive than an A in a regular course, right? If they want to see that you are challenging yourself in your academic rigor. But you shouldn't do it to the extent that it's causing your grades to suffer. So it's really tough to give you an across the board, this is what you should do. Every student's going to be a little bit different. But if there's a class that you're really strong in, like most students are, either really good at math and science, or maybe some are good at English or Spanish or history, whatever it might be, and you consistently do well in that class, it might behoove them to move on to honors or AP. And if they don't, colleges may want to know why. Also, if you didn't start off great, getting great grades in college, that doesn't necessarily mean it's over. They want to see improvement over time. That can look really impressive to admissions offices. They want to see that you are exceeding your minimum requirements. So if you have a certain amount of math courses or science courses or language courses that you need to take, and particularly if you want to go into a specific field, they want to see that you are doing more than just the minimum that is required. And then, there are some, there's a level of requirements that you need to fulfill to be eligible for public colleges in Massachusetts. So it's called the Mass Core. And so you need to have 4 years of English or 3 years of math, or that you have to pass those requirements. Those aren't the real requirements. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. But your high school counselor should be helping you to maintain that throughout. But if you have an issue where you might not have completed one of those courses, there might be some workaround for that if you test really well. For example, if your tests on standardized, if your scores on standardized tests are quite high. So these are conversations that you can have if it's a concern with your high school counselors. But I want to leave you with, yes? Oh, 5 minutes? Wow. Oh, okay. So I'll move on to standardized tests. These are things called the SAT. These are the SATs and the ACTs. So typically, you start to take your PSATs, your practice SATs, in your sophomore year. You can take your SATs or the ACTs. These are the standardized tests. People ask, should I take the SAT or the ACT? It's up to you. As I said earlier, a lot of colleges are test optional. You can take the SAT multiple times because studies show that the more you take it, the higher you score, up to a certain point. So I think if you take it, once you start hitting 4 times taking the SATs, you're not getting any better than that. But 1, 2, 3 times, your score should improve. There's also free test prep available for both the SATs and the ACTs, which you should take advantage of. And the question of whether or not you should take the SAT or the ACT, there are free practice tests available that you can go. There's a bit, they're a little bit different. SAT scores run from 400 to 1600, ACT from 1 to 36. And so the SAT is typically thought of as more of a measurement in how you think, your cognitive reasoning, whereas an ACT test is typically thought of as more straightforward, what do you know? The SAT this year has changed to a completely digital SAT. So it's gone from 3 hours to about just over 2 hours. But those are, as I said, the SAT goes through math and verbal. So you might be like I did, you score really high on one and not high on the other. You can choose, if you do want to submit your scores, you can choose which scores that you submit to college. You can also, some colleges allow you to take your highest verbal and your highest math and put them together and send them that way. So again, this is going to come down to the college. Your activity list and resume, so I've already sort of spoken about extracurricular activities, and to include family responsibilities and employment, and to highlight the impact that you have on your community. The essays I do want to talk about for a minute because, as I mentioned, in the Common App, there are prompts for essays. So I say, like, what was one time that really challenged your worldview? When did you decide you were wrong, and what was it? Or tell me about a hardship. People get really stressed. Students get really stressed about what they're going to write about in their essays. And so I think you find a lot of students sort of thinking, what's the most dramatic thing in my life I can write about? Or what's a sad story from my life I can write about, honestly? And that's really not what they're looking for. They want to know who you are as a student. So they want something that illustrates who you are. They want to know that you can write. And they want to know that you can write about yourself. And I did this whole conversation. I had a podcast. I do the MIFA podcast. So we have a podcast, which I host. But I spoke with the associate admissions director at College of the Holy Cross about essays. And he said that, the essays are all the admissions counselors' favorite parts of the application because they're looking at transcripts, they're looking at scores, they're looking at it's not very interesting. But then they get to read your essay, and that can be a lot of fun. So, he always talks about his favorite essay of his that particular year was this student who wrote about her dad and how he embarrasses her and makes her laugh and all this stuff. And that was his favorite essay that he read. That won't be everybody's perspective, but I thought a good piece of advice for this was if you have a good time writing your essay and you enjoy writing it, they will have a good time reading it. And so they read thousands of essays. And so you want to be the one that they remember. So, that just think about if you're really struggling writing it, they're probably going to be struggling reading it. Start the summer before, start working on it. You can have people proofread it, you can have people, but it should be your essay, obviously. I feel bad even saying that because of course you know that. But one other thing he said is that I know when a 17-year-old has written an essay and when they haven't because he's read thousands of essays. This is just an example of some of the Common App essay prompts, which you can look at when you get the slides. Right, letters of recommendation. Who should you ask? If you are interested in, science, you may want to ask your science teacher. Journalism, English teacher, things like that. Colleges will tell you should have 2 letters of recommendation, for example. More is not better for letters of recommendation. Don't give them 3 or 4. Whatever. If they want 2, you can give them 2. Junior year of high school is a good time to ask, and a junior year teacher is a good person to ask because you're fresh in their minds, and they know you. And so ask them before summer of junior year. That way they can work on your essays because they probably have a lot of them to write over the summer. And so you can have them by the time the fall comes around. And then also say thank you. Write them a thank you note. I covered interviews already, so we don't have to talk about that. So you can either be admitted, denied, deferred, which is if you're applying early, they may not admit you early, but they might just defer you to the regular decision pool. So that's something they can do. Or they can waitlist you. And that is, as I said, a tough position to be in because you just don't know. And I've talked to many, many parents and students who've been waitlisted at their top choice schools. Students have to make a deposit by May 1st. And oftentimes students will not hear from their college that they're waitlisted on by May 1st. So what you need to do is make a deposit at your second choice school so you can secure your place there. If it's possible to be admitted off the wait list, but if you are admitted off the wait list, it's likely that you won't be getting a lot of financial aid because at that time, most of the financial aid has already been granted to their students. So it is, but sometimes you're just waitlisted and you never hear back from any of the colleges, which is a tough position to be in. I will mention this before I know I got to go, but every college has, as far as affordability is concerned, every college has a net price calculator on their website. And so what that is it should take you about 5 minutes to fill it out. Put in some income information, some asset information, how many people are in your family, et cetera. And it should give you an idea of how much financial aid you're likely to get at that college for a year and what the remaining cost should be. Some colleges will put a lot of work into making sure that net price calculator is as accurate as possible, and some will not. Some use a kind of uniform measure. So they kind of vary in terms of accuracy. But I can say I have one personal experience with using a net price calculator, and it was very close to what I ended up paying. Know what financial aid applications are required. So everybody wants a FAFSA. What's their FAFSA deadline? Do they want any other forms? And what are those deadlines? And you can start looking for private scholarships now, so outside scholarships. Scholarships from local businesses and organizations, which students should talk to their high school counselors about. And then national scholarships, there are search engines that they can use. That MIFA Pathway flyer I gave you has some links to them. Never pay to have a scholarship search engine done. There are plenty of free, reputable scholarships. So you create a profile, and then they match you up with scholarship opportunities that you can apply to. Right, so FAFSA, we talked about already. This year, we just don't know when it's going to be available. We hear sometime in December, which, you know, I think is probably going to be near the end of December, but I don't know. I just know it's sometime in December. CSS Pro, if a college requires a CSS profile, that is available to fill out now. So some colleges, as I say, every college wants a FAFSA. Some want this other form, the CSS profile in addition. If you're applying to one of those colleges, you can do that now and sort of be eligible for their institutional aid. And I'll just say also that in about 2 weeks, we'll have a presentation on financial aid here from my colleague. I think this is about the end, so I want to say this is a program. There are 2 programs that are trying to get people through their 4-year degree program with little to no debt. Mass Transfer is a program where you start off through a community college, are guaranteed to transfer into a 4-year public community college in Massachusetts, and can even qualify for things like tuition rebates as long as you're maintaining your GPA. And Tuition Break is a program where you can attend a public college outside of Massachusetts, but in another New England state, and get a discounted tuition if your course of study is not offered at a public college in Massachusetts.
Which is very unlikely.
Yes, but it does happen. It does happen. So I would encourage you to look into that. So MIFA Pathway, you have a slide, a handout on. So what you can do now, sign up for our webinars or emails. We'll just send you 1 or 2 a month based on your age, the age of your students. Research colleges and start creating your list. Connect with us on social. We're posting stuff all the time on everything that I just talked about, and specifically scholarships. We have a lot of scholarship organizations sort of reaching out to us and asking us to promote their scholarships, which we do. I've talked a lot, so if you guys have any questions, I will be here until I answer them. Yeah?
So if I have the same year,
Mm-hmm.
student, so which FAFSA I'm going to start? 24, 25?
You have to do 24, 25, yeah.
When I start to like phase?
Nobody knows. So honestly, for the FAFSA, it's typically out. You'd typically be able to do it by now. It's delayed because they're redoing it, and they think it should be ready sometime in December.
What if one person like failed 23, 24 and
It won't be valid because,
doesn't affect if I
no, it shouldn't have any, if you file the wrong FAFSA by accident, it won't have any bearing on your future FAFSA that you file. What you can do now, and what you probably should do now, is get what's called an FSA ID. That's,
how I get this ID?
you didn't know about that?
Yeah, no, I heard about it, but I how to get the ID.
So you go to student, I can help you. You go to studentaid.gov and click on the link. But you should be able to do it. And that's what you need to actually start your FAFSA. Student needs an FSA ID, and the parent needs an FSA ID too.
Do we have to apply for two FAFSA, one for my son, one for her?
Yes, FAFSA is per student. So if you got 2 students in college, you do 2 FAFSAs.
No. If I
Oh.
have one son,
Oh,
he can get his ID.
yes. And you would also need an ID.
We have to do that.
Yes. Typically, there's 2 FSA IDs, one for the student, and in the case of a 2-parent household, most of the time only one parent needs an FSA ID. Sometimes each parent needs an FSA ID. That's new. That's new coming up.
I mean, it's not enough if the student needs ID.
No.
It has to be the parent also.
The parent also, yeah. Because they need to put their information in. They're looking at parent income, and they're looking at all this, taxes from the parents and stuff like that. So, yeah. Stephanie will be able to talk more about that in a couple of weeks. But, yeah, you would need to do that, yeah. But that's something you can do now, and that's always going to be your ID, like for life. So next year when you do it, it's going to be the same ID. So you're always going to have that. Now, if you lose it, you can get another one, but it's going to stay with you. Anybody else?
Any questions? No questions?
Just one.
Yes.
One more. It's about high school transfer.
Yes.
My son was in 2 high schools and he has a GPA from like the sophomore, freshman and sophomore from a school.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved the school
Yes.
in junior and senior.
Yes.
So right now we have 2 GPA, one from the old school and one from the new school.
Yep.
We are in the process of preparing the common app.
Okay.
It asks for the GPA.
Yes.
I know that each college they have their own calculator
Mm-hmm.
to put the GPA. But
Yes.
I'm not sure which one I should put.
If they don't specify, I'm not sure. I haven't been through the Common App in a while, so I'm not sure if they specify per year. I think what they're looking for, especially if they want to see great improvement over time, I would imagine they would look at the total GPA from each year. But I don't know. I can follow up with you on that because I'm not quite sure. I do know they should look at all of it, from what I understand.
There's only
Yeah.
No, within that graduation, the transcripts will show 4 years because the school will move whatever came to it, or no?
right now we are in the process of applying, completing the common app.
No, what I mean is that by the end of senior year, the school will have like full transcripts with
We asked,
OGCA.
yeah, we asked the counselor. He said we don't calculate it, but you will send 2 transcripts to the college,
Mm-hmm.
and then they will do the calculation. That's when we apply for the college. But in the common app, there is only one field that you need to fill in.
Yeah.
It says GPA.
Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not that familiar with it. Yes.
I'm going through the same thing right now.
Yeah.
And what my counselor told me was, she said the best thing to do is to put the highest GPA. Yeah, so whichever he has highest, just put that GPA. I'm transferring from another school. So that's what that.
Thank you. Yeah.
What the higher one?
I don't know. Sounds like good advice. But yeah, I'll find out. I should frankly know the answer to that question. I don't. So I'll find out and just let you know if it's something different. If it's something different, I'll let you know. Yeah. So I got that one, and I've got the other colleges. See what other colleges you're applying to. Okay.
Any other questions for Jonathan?
That's okay. Yeah. That's okay if you doesn't have social media. That's fine. It's just a way to get in touch with colleges, but it doesn't. I can't imagine that it would look bad if he doesn't. You know, it only looks bad if he's got something bad on it. If he's got it, you know. But no, I think it's okay. It's fine. All right. Thank you. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Again, you can imagine about 10, 11 generation heard this talk, benefited. Some of them are graduated, working, hopefully have kids by now.
Yes. Yeah.
So we really appreciate
Oh,
your,
no, thank you very much.
your input.
Yeah.
So let's pray, including prayer. And in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.